I bought a house for all of us to live in. Now I don't have to do any caregiving. You quit your job and take on all the caregiving yourself.
Daniel's loud voice echoed through our living room. What do you mean by making such a selfish decision? I raised my voice in protest. Sandra's caregiving had just begun, and this was supposed to be the time when Richard, Daniel, and I worked together to support her. We agreed the three of us would work together to care for Sandra. When I said that, Daniel glared at me coldly.
I bought the house for everyone. You should just shut up and focus on caregiving. Stop talking back to me.
I clenched my fists, shaking with frustration and anger. Buying a house without consulting anyone and forcing caregiving onto me. That's the lowest of the low, I muttered, and Daniel responded with an air of arrogance.
Fine, you don't have to do the caregiving. But in that case, we'll get a divorce. So, what's it going to be?
He gave me two options: caregiving or divorce. The smug grin on his face made it clear he didn't think I would choose divorce. However, shortly after, a single phone call would deliver Daniel a harsh dose of reality. His arrogant demeanor, his plan to dump all the caregiving on me, everything came crashing down in an instant. Daniel, his face filled with despair, collapsed and stayed there. Looking at him, I murmured quietly before leaving the room. How pathetic. I'm Mia Smith, 34 years old. I work as a designer for an apparel company, a dream I had since I was a student while raising my 4-year-old son, Steven. My husband, Daniel, who's 5 years older than me, works for his father, Richard's textile company. He's currently learning the ropes from Richard as the next CEO candidate, but lately, all he talks about at home is that.
When I become CEO, I'll be playing golf all the time. Plus, I'll be able to get a brand new car.
Whenever he opens his mouth, it's nothing but shallow talk.
Oh, by the way, when I become CEO,
Here we go again. During dinner, Daniel started his usual spiel. I tried to half listen and let it slide.
when I become CEO, Mia, you need to quit your job.
Daniel said this with a calm expression, as if it was the most obvious thing in the world. What? I was taken aback.
I mean it. I want you to quit your job. Isn't it weird for the CEO's wife to be working? It's embarrassing, so please stop.
I slowly set down my fork and knife. Sorry, but I have no intention of quitting. You know how much this job means to me. It's a dream I've finally achieved. And just recently, I got promoted to team lead. I need to keep working hard.
Come on, think about it. Once I'm the CEO, I'll be making way more than your current salary. So why not quit and focus on the house and Steven? I don't know much about being a designer or whatever, but if you want clothes, I'll give you the money.
Excuse me? Don't belittle me. I'm serious about both my job and raising Steven. And this team lead position is a big deal for me right now. Daniel banged the table and, with an angry yet forced smile, said,
There are many people who can take your place. Stop going on about dreams at your age and start acting like a CEO's wife. All the CEOs I know have stay-at-home wives. If you keep working, people will think I can't even afford to take care of my own wife.
With that, he left his dinner unfinished and stormed out of the living room.
Daddy was mad?
Stephen looked at me with a slightly worried expression. It's okay. Come on, let's eat. Your soup's going to get cold. I smiled at Stephen, trying to reassure him. But inside me, Anger and sadness swirled around like a storm. From that day on, Daniel started making snide remarks at every opportunity. When I wore clothes from the brand I worked for to the office, Daniel said,
"Those clothes are so tacky. That's embarrassing for a CEO's wife."
When I told Steven I'd be a little late picking him up one day, Daniel remarked,
"If you can't even pick him up on time, maybe you should quit your job."
if Daniel's lunchbox was a bit simpler than usual, he'd comment,
"Now that you're a team lead, you can't even make a decent lunch?"
The stress kept piling up, and thoughts of divorce crossed my mind more and more. I shook my head and reminded myself, no divorce for Steven's sake. Steven still had elementary school, middle school, and high school ahead of him. I didn't want to make him feel lonely or create a life where we'd worry about finances. One day, while I was at work, my phone suddenly rang. I paused my work and glanced at the screen. It was Richard and my father-in-law. Unlike Daniel, Richard was calm and always composed. He had an air of intelligence and carried himself like the CEO he was. "Hello?"
Hi, Mia. It's Sandra. She fell down the stair.
"What? Sandra did?" I realized everyone around me was staring as my voice grew louder. Quietly, I stepped out of the room and sat on a lobby sofa.
She's getting treated now, but yeah, it's a mess.
"Which hospital is it?"
But
Before Richard could finish, I ended the call, left the office, and hailed a taxi. My mother-in-law, Sandra, had been kind to me ever since I got married. When I was newly married, I couldn't make meals good enough to serve anyone. Sandra was always kind and patiently taught me how to cook. Both Richard and Sandra were very dear to me. When I arrived at the hospital and explained the situation to the receptionist, they immediately guided me to her room. "Sandra!" I entered the room, slightly out of breath. When Sandra, lying in bed, saw me, she gave an apologetic smile.
Mia, you didn't have to come all the way here.
"Oh, thank goodness. Are you okay? Is the injury serious?"
I'm fine. Honestly, it's because someone exaggerated my situation.
She glanced at Richard with a slightly annoyed tone.
well, I didn't mean to exaggerate.
Richard replied, scratching his head awkwardly. "I'm sorry. I just panicked."
Thank you, Mia. It's tough getting old, isn't it?
Sandra said with a wry smile, but the cast wrapped around her leg told a different story. Just then, the door to the hospital room quietly opened, and a doctor and nurse entered.
Would like to talk about her injury and next steps. Is now a good time?
The three of us sat and listened to what they had to say. The doctor explained matter-of-factly. The gist was that due to a fracture and torn muscles, there was a possibility that walking could become difficult in the future. I immediately started looking it up online. But it says here that with proper rehabilitation and treatment, things can improve. I showed my phone to the doctor.
In Sandra's case, her age is a factor. Also, it's best not to believe everything you read online.
"I'm sorry."
Thank you, Mia. Well, it is what it is.
Sandra said with a bittersweet smile and lowered her gaze slightly. "Sandra." After the explanation ended and the doctor and nurse left, a quiet atmosphere settled over the room. Sandra slowly reached for the documents the nurse had left, including explanations about hospitalization, consent forms, caregiving, and facility information.
I never thought I'd need this kind of care as I approach 70.
Flipping through the pamphlets, Sandra had a helpless expression on her face. "Sandra, Please let me help with anything. Don't hesitate to ask, okay? Hearing my words, Sandra gave me a bittersweet smile. That expression made my chest ache just a little. Suddenly, the hospital room door burst open.
Mom,
Daniel entered the room. You're late. It had been over an hour since had been contacted.
you fell down the stairs? Are you okay?
He acted concerned, but I could tell it was just for show.
Yes, but as you can see, I'm doing fine.
That's a relief. I came running as soon as I heard.
For someone who came running, it sure took you long enough. I grumbled silently in my head.
What's this?
Daniel noticed the pamphlets about caregiving and assisted living facilities and made an openly displeased face.
Sandra's leg might have lasting complications. From now on, we all need to support each other and help her out.
Richard explained briefly.
Caregiving? Are her complications really that severe?
We don't know for sure yet, but the chances are pretty high.
Oh,
After hearing Richard's words, Daniel gave a dismissive response and placed the pamphlet back on the table. A month later, Sandra returned home. Despite her efforts in rehabilitation, her leg never fully recovered. This marked the start of a new chapter in her life. Richard wanted Sandra to spend her time comfortably at home rather than in a facility, so we decided to work together as a family to care for her, with the help of caregivers. Every day after picking Stephen up from school, I would stop by Sandra and Richard's house to prepare dinner and help Sandra eat while we all dined together. Stephen seemed to enjoy the family dinners, smiling more naturally than ever. Because of this, I didn't find it burdensome at all. Sandra, I got some strawberries. They were on sale. I handed her a plate of strawberries and sat next to her.
Thank you so much, Mia, for everything you do every single day.
Sandra smiled warmly. Richard, sitting on the sofa with Stephen, nodded and smiled as well. I truly loved their gentle smiles. Since I got married, they've treated me like their own daughter, always kind and supportive. They even cheered me on at work and celebrated when I got promoted. Helping Sandra and supporting Richard was just my way of giving back. Sandra, I'll do anything for you. Please stay healthy. Sandra placed her hand gently on mine.
Don't worry, nothing worse is going to happen to me.
Her crinkled smile reassured me. Although it pained me that Sandra had lost some mobility, I felt like our bond had grown even stronger because of this.
Mia, are you here?
Daniel's voice echoed from the front door. The moment he walked into the living room, a strong smell of alcohol wafted in with him.
What's this, Daniel? You finally show up, and you've been drinking.
Richard's tone was sharp with irritation. While I came to the house daily, Daniel rarely visited, and when he did, he never helped with Sandra's care.
Well, lots of people want to celebrate me as the next CEO. Every single day it's let's toast with my employees and friends. It's been exhausting. Oh, Mom, how are you feeling?
Daniel was over the moon. His tone made me doubt whether he was genuinely concerned.
Mia, is there anything to eat? I'm starving.
At that moment, Richard's voice rang out.
Daniel,
Daniel's eyes widened in surprise.
we all agreed to work together and support each other. What's with that attitude? You haven't done a single thing to help with the house or the family.
My bad. I'll start helping more from now on.
Daniel apologized to Richard with an awkward smile.
I'm sorry, Mia. That's enough for today. You should go home.
All right, Richard's reprimand toward Daniel created a slight awkwardness. When we got back home, Daniel sat on the couch looking irritated, playing a game on his phone. "Why are you acting so annoyed?" "The ones having a hard time are Sandra and Richard."
Shut up. I said it'd help, didn't I? Just leave me alone. I was in such a good mood after drinking, and now it's completely ruined.
With that, Daniel snapped and walked off to the bathroom. His heartless behavior left me speechless. From then on, Daniel began visiting Sandra and Richard's house every day, helping out with housework and Sandra's care. However, his expression always seemed annoyed, making it uncomfortable to even watch him. When Richard wasn't around, Daniel would slack off or try to push the tasks onto me. After about 6 months of living like that, one day, after returning home from Sandra and Richard's house, I was playing with Steven in our living room when Daniel spoke up.
I've been thinking, how about we have my parents move in with us?
"Move in? Where is this coming from all of a sudden?"
Well, wouldn't it be easier? If they're living with us, it'll be more convenient and reassuring, right?
Coming from Daniel, who always seemed reluctant about caregiving, his words felt out of place. "Have you really been so eager about caregiving? Or is there something you're planning?" When I asked, Daniel paused for a moment before admitting,
As the second generation CEO, having a stay-at-home wife and living with my parents gives a great image. It shows financial stability, strong family bonds. Everything looks perfect. Putting mom in a care facility would make me look like an idiot. But I don't want to be the one doing the caregiving.
"And yet you want them to move in? That doesn't make any sense." Frowning, I couldn't make sense of his logic.
If I'm slacking off without helping, of course, mom and dad won't be happy. But if it's because I'm busy with work, if I bought a house and worked hard to pay off the mortgage, dad would totally respect that.
With that, Daniel grinned and patted my shoulder.
Leave the finances to me. You quit your pointless job and focus on taking care of mom. You'll be the perfect wife. Sound good?
Not a chance. I couldn't help but shout, and a loud thud echoed in front of me. A thick file had been thrown onto the table, filled with blueprints, planning documents, soil survey reports, and property registration papers. "What is this?" Feeling a bit panicked, I flipped through the pages.
A new house for all of us to live together. I built it. It's a 3,500 square foot single family home. And of course, it's completely accessible for mom.
Daniel spoke proudly, but I felt the blood drain from my face. "How much did it cost?"
Altogether, $700,000. But once I'm the CEO, I'll pay it off in no time. And with such a big mortgage, I'll have a solid excuse to skip caregiving.
"What on earth are you thinking?" Without meaning to, I raised my voice in front of Steven. "I can't believe such an enormous amount of money. And building a house without consulting me? That's unbelievable." Daniel's proud expression immediately turned into a glare as he stared at me.
Listen, I don't care if you're some kind of team lead or whatever at work. In this house, you're just a wife. Don't talk back to me.
He said this and threw a nearby water bottle at me. "Stop it in front of Steven." Steven clung to my clothes, trembling. I gently patted his small back and glared at Daniel with determination.
What's with that look? Whatever, let's not waste time. Decide now.
"Decide what?"
Do you want to live in a $700,000 luxury house and take care of mom, or do you want a divorce?
Finally, the word divorce came out of Daniel's mouth. My heart skipped a beat. I glanced at Stephen and saw that, despite his frightened expression, he was glaring at Daniel. That look on his face was no longer one of a child looking at his father. I made up my mind right then and there. Divorce. Daniel looked shaken, as though he hadn't expected me to choose divorce.
Are you stupid? You'd be the wife of a CEO, living in a brand new house. All you'd have to do is caregiving. And yet you're choosing divorce? That's insane.
I've had enough. Ever since you were named the next CEO, your arrogant attitude and constant snide remarks. Why do I have to sacrifice so much just because of your promotion? Why do I have to give up on the dream I've worked so hard to achieve? Before I realized it, tears were streaming down my face.
Stop making me repeat myself.
Daniel's loud voice echoed as he stomped on my argument.
I'm telling you to take responsibility. You're my wife, I'm your husband, and I'm going to be the CEO. As my wife, your job is to make me, the CEO, look good.
Understood. I wiped away my tears. I'm leaving.
What?
The luggage could be dealt with later. I grabbed my work bag and Stephen's daycare bag, ready to leave the house with him. Stephen clung tightly to my hand.
Hey, wait.
I swung the front door wide open. If you keep yelling, the whole neighborhood will hear. Shouting coming from the house of the next CEO, Daniel. They'll say. Daniel clenched his jaw in frustration, falling silent. Goodbye. With that, Stephen and I walked out of the house. I started the car engine and drove down the road at night.
Mom, where are we going?
Stephen asked anxiously. How about we go to my parents' house? Oh, and maybe stop by for some drive-through burgers on the way. When I smiled at him, Stephen's eyes lit up, and he said excitedly,
Really? Even though it's nighttime?
Yep, it's a special treat.
Yay!
As if the earlier incident had never happened, we chatted happily in the car. I wanted to make it so, at least in Stephen's mind. The earlier incident never happened. I was overwhelmed with guilt for having scared him. We headed toward my parents' house, which was just a short drive away. Seeing my mom and dad for the first time in a while made Stephen visibly happy. The next morning, after my parents left for work and I dropped Stephen off at his daycare, I returned to their house and noticed a silver car parked out front. He's here. Daniel had come to my parents' house. I wasn't surprised, as I figured he'd find out I was here soon enough. Living in a safe rural area, my parents had the habit of leaving their house key in the mailbox. I'd never told Daniel about this, but he must have figured it out and let himself in. He was pacing around in the living room. How can you just walk into someone else's house so early in the morning? I asked coldly from behind him.
Your parents' house is my house too. It's been a while since I came here, and it just felt nostalgic.
He spoke as if nothing had happened the night before. Sorry, but I have work soon. If you don't have anything important to say, could you leave? As I got myself ready, Daniel sat down at the dining table and began talking.
I told Mom and Dad about what happened yesterday, and they really let me have it. They told me to apologize to you immediately.
He didn't look the least bit remorseful.
So, could you come back home? I can't afford to make those two mad. You get it, right? My parents are the ones who hold my future in their hands.
I silently packed my work documents into my bag. Even without looking, I could feel his irritation at how cold and unresponsive I was being.
Hey, do you even get it? This isn't just about me. If you come back, Steven is guaranteed to inherit the CEO position one day. Are you really going to throw that away? Do you want a divorce so badly that yet ignore your responsibility as a parent to think about your child's future?
I stayed silent, letting his words wash over me without reacting.
You're just going to make Steven's life miserable if you raise him. There's no way you can make him happy. Think about the financial power I'll have in the future. Ignoring that kind of money right in front of you is just plain stupid.
Daniel's anger kept escalating, his voice getting louder.
Do you think you can earn more than me? Can you take my place?
I paused for a moment and then spoke coldly. Is that all you have to say?
What?
I have work to do. Leave. Your voice is grating. My icy words seemed to trigger Daniel, and he grabbed a vase from the table and threw it against the wall.
Don't push your luck. You're supposed to keep your mouth shut and listen to me. Got it? If you don't come back, I'll show you hell.
Leaving those words behind, he slammed the living room door and stormed out. Moments later, I saw his car speed out of the driveway through the window. I glared at the retreating car as it disappeared from sight. A few days later, while I was at work and focused on my computer, a younger coworker, Amanda, rushed over to me in a panic.
Mia, well, the production line for this product has stopped.
I took the document she handed me and quickly scanned it. It was for a product nearing its deadline. This is cutting it way too close. What's going on? The production line or the factory's not running?
I'll check. Well, the number for Smith Textiles is.
Amanda flipped through the papers in her hands. What? I grabbed the documents from her and anxiously reviewed them. The name of the production factory was Smith Textiles. No way. That's right. One of the production factories my company partners with is Richard's company, and that production line suddenly stopped at this critical moment.
I'll show you hell.
Daniel's parting words echoed in my mind.
Mia, are you okay? You don't look well.
Amanda leaned in, her face full of concern. I'm fine. I'll handle this. You can get back to work. I sent Amanda back to her tasks and stepped into an empty hallway with my phone pressed to my ear. I called Richard. The phone kept ringing, but there was no sign of him answering.
I'll be traveling overseas next week, so you don't need to come by the house. Sandra will be staying at a short-term care facility.
I recalled Richard mentioning this last week. He must be on a business trip. Looking back toward the office, I saw everyone rushing around in panic. I need to fix this somehow. Just then, my phone rang. I checked the screen, hoping it was Richard, but it was Daniel. I quickly answered the call. This is your doing, isn't it?
Is everyone in a frenzy by now?
Daniel's loud, mocking laughter echoed through the phone. Restart production. Everyone here is in chaos. Don't drag my work into this.
Now you get it, don't you? This is the kind of power I have. Why don't you, as the team lead, figure something out?
I could easily imagine the smug grin on Daniel's face as he taunted me.
It's a good thing I only stopped the factory. I could terminate the business partnership if I wanted to, you know.
Stop joking. Do you even understand what you're doing? This is between you and me. The company has nothing to do with it.
Oh, really? Then if you come back home, I'll restart production. So, What's it going to be?
As much as it pained me, I had no choice but to accept his terms with all my coworkers behind me scrambling in panic. Fine, I'll come back today. So, restart production immediately.
Say, please.
Daniel was completely toying with me, full of disdain. Please.
That's what you should've said from the beginning. See you later.
With that, Daniel hung up the call without another word. I collapsed weakly onto the hallway floor. To go this far, I was filled with frustration, sadness, and anger, but I couldn't even cry. A little while later, as I returned to work, Amanda rushed over to me with a relieved expression.
Mia, the factory manager at Smith Textiles called just now. They've restarted production. Apparently, it was a mechanical issue. Oh, thank goodness.
Amanda's eyes welled up with tears of relief. I felt a pang of guilt in my chest. That's good news.
I'll get back to processing everything.
Yeah, please do. I forced a smile. Seeing Amanda's tearful relief only made my anger simmer even more. How dare he mess with such an important job and with my colleagues? Good work, everyone. As the clock struck the end of the workday, employees filed out one after another. I closed my laptop and took a deep breath. Before heading home, I picked up Steven from his daycare, made a stop at an office, and then drove toward my house. Once at the house, I pressed the doorbell. It felt awkward since I almost never ring the doorbell of my own house. Through the speaker, Daniel's arrogant voice came through.
Just come in now.
At that moment, a man standing next to me leaned in and said,
Well, if you insist, I'll be coming in.
Who the hell are you?
Neither the man nor I answered Daniel, and we entered the house. Steven held my hand tightly, not letting go. In the living room, Daniel sat with a slightly flushed face, and a half-finished glass of wine sat on the table. You were drinking, I see.
Work was so busy today. Something about the factory shutting down or whatever. I couldn't handle it without a drink.
Daniel said, his tone dripping with exaggeration.
And besides, today's the big day. You've decided to quit your job and focus entirely on caregiving. A moment worth celebrating, right? Anyway, who's this guy? Don't tell me you've been out meeting another man.
Have you no manners when meeting someone for the first time? I'm amazed. This is Anthony, my attorney.
Your attorney?
Daniel's face immediately turned wary as he stared at Anthony. I came back today to discuss our divorce. He's here to help with that.
What are you talking about? You just said you weren't getting a divorce. You tricked me.
Tricked you? What are you saying? You told me to come back and I did. I never said I wouldn't go through with the divorce. I replied coldly and quickly tidied up the messy dining table before leading Anthony to a seat. Please, have a seat, Anthony. Anthony sat down and began taking out documents and files. Daniel, visibly flustered, couldn't hide his agitation. I started speaking calmly and firmly. I'll get straight to the point. As I told you before, I am absolutely going through with our divorce. Daniel, still standing, raised his voice in frustration.
You're so stupid. Divorce isn't something you can just decide unilaterally. You're just shouting nonsense all on your own.
With all due respect, Daniel.
Anthony finally spoke up.
What do you want?
Daniel glared at Anthony.
Divorce can't be finalized on unilateral grounds. You're correct about that. However, If there are valid reasons recognized by the court, even if you object, the divorce can still be granted.
What? Court?
I quietly took out my phone and played a voice recording. I had been secretly recording since the time Daniel began making snide remarks toward me.
Quit your job. Act like the CEO's wife you're supposed to be. Team leads can easily be replaced.
The recordings included his angry outbursts, sarcastic comments, and even the "I'll show you hell" from the other day. The color drained from Daniel's face with every recording I played. I pressed play on each file, one after the other, methodically. "Do you want to hear more?" When I asked, Daniel weakly sat down in his chair.
That's enough.
Mia has also been keeping a diary of these events, which will be submitted as evidence if this goes to court.
Anthony continued, only to be interrupted by Daniel.
Fine, I get it.
A brief silence filled the room before I broke it. "Do you want to go to court? It'll be tough for someone who's about to become CEO to deal with a divorce trial. It'll make headlines, you know, and it might even affect your work." I spoke in a deliberately provoking tone, but Daniel remained frozen, unable to respond. "What about your employees? How would they feel seeing their future CEO embroiled in a messy divorce case? Would they still trust and respect you enough to give you their full support?"
Fine, I'll agree to the divorce.
Daniel reluctantly gave in, his face full of frustration and defeat. Daniel, who had been so full of confidence moments ago, suddenly seemed much smaller. Good. I felt a small sense of triumph inside.
Understood. Now, regarding matters after the divorce.
Anthony continued to speak calmly and professionally.
First, there's child support for Stephen and alimony for Mia. You'll be required to make these payments, Daniel. If you fail to pay, this could lead to the seizure of your car or the house you purchased, so please be mindful of that.
Daniel, who had been looking uneasy, suddenly seemed to remember something and blurted out.
Steven's mine, right?
"What are you talking about?" I muttered without even looking at him.
Custody of Stephen will go to Mia. Daniel, you've barely participated in parenting, and more importantly, Stephen has expressed a strong desire to stay with Mia. That should be respected.
Stephen, who had been drawing at a distance, ran over to me and grabbed onto my clothes tightly.
Steven, don't you want to stay with me? I'll buy you all the superhero transformation kits you wanted and let you eat whatever you like every day.
Stephen hung his head and shook it silently.
Come on, Steven. If you stay with me, I won't be lonely. And you can live with Grandpa and Grandma too. Doesn't that sound good?
Daniel approached Stephen with a forced smile and shook the small shoulders of the 5-year-old with both hands.
Stop it, Dad.
Stephen resisted in a small voice, but Daniel wouldn't stop.
Steven, if you stay with me, you'll grow up to be a CEO one day. Think about it. There's so much money waiting for you.
Enough already. Can't you see you're scaring Stephen? I raised my voice and pulled Stephen away from Daniel.
Shut up. Hey, Anthony, look at the financial difference between me and Mia. Isn't it obvious who's better for Stephen?
Anthony, unfazed by Daniel's outburst, replied calmly.
Daniel, financial capacity isn't the primary consideration when determining custody. Child support is paid by one parent, so both parties' finances are accounted for.
Then fine. If I get custody, waive the child support and alimony.
I refused to back down, raising my voice as well. "What are you talking about?" Do you think this is some sort of negotiation? You'll absolutely pay child support and alimony. And no, you're not getting custody. Just then, Daniel's phone began to ring. Everyone's attention turned to the phone on the table. Daniel picked it up and frowned slightly at the screen. When he answered the call, the face of Richard appeared on the screen. It was a video call. On the screen, Richard appeared, looking visibly furious.
Daniel, I just got a call from the senior manager, and he told me about what happened at the factory today. Is it true you deliberately stopped production?
No, that was because the factory machinery had a malfunction.
Don't lie. Several employees said the machines were running fine, but you shouted at them to shut it down. Do you realize what you've done? Didn't you think, even for a second, about how disrespectful and disruptive this was to your hardworking team and Maya's company?
Daniel was unable to respond, his head hanging low.
The employees are confused and upset. And did it not occur to you that this would damage my credibility as well? On top of that, I heard you demanded to see the partnership contract from my secretary. What exactly were you planning to do?
Daniel stood frozen, like a child being scolded by a parent, unable to say a word.
Mia, are you there?
Yes. I took the phone from Daniel's hand and held it up to show my face on the screen.
Can you tell me what happened?
Not only did he stop production, but he also threatened to terminate the contract with my company. Richard let out a deep, frustrated sigh. Seeing the disappointment on his face stirred complicated emotions within me.
I'm so sorry. This is ultimately my responsibility as the CEO. I truly apologize. Hey, Daniel.
I handed the phone back to Daniel.
Daniel, are you listening?
Daniel gave a small nod.
Forget about becoming the next CEO.
Daniel, who had been staring at the ground, suddenly snapped his head up, clutching the phone tightly.
Wait, Dad. I'll apologize properly to Mia. And not just her, but to her company too. Please don't do this.
What you did cannot simply be resolved with an apology. And there is no place in my company for someone like you.
Wait.
Daniel looked at Richard on the screen with an expression of pure panic.
You're fired.
Finally, Richard uttered the shocking words. Both Anthony and I widened our eyes in surprise. Daniel, in a panic, began speaking quickly.
Wait, Dad. I'm the only heir, aren't I? It's only natural for me to become the next CEO. You can't fire me. You've lost your mind.
First of all, there is no rule that the successor has to be family. My company is full of employees far more capable than you. And another thing, I never raised a son who would say his father has lost his mind. Don't ever call yourself my son again.
No, I'm your son.
You are not my son. From now on, stay out of my life.
Wait, Dad. I'm sorry.
Richard spoke slowly, his voice cold and steady.
You are nothing but a stain on my life.
Those words broke Daniel. Tears streamed down his face as he collapsed, breathing heavily. The video call ended, and the screen returned to the home screen. Anthony adjusted his glasses awkwardly and spoke.
Well, I think I'll leave it here for today.
I stood up, gently nudging Stephen's back, and we all began to leave the room. When I glanced back at Daniel, he was still collapsed and completely motionless. How pathetic. Even to the words I quietly muttered, he gave no reaction at all. Sometime later, With the help of Anthony and Richard, my divorce was successfully finalized. To prevent any issues in case Daniel tried to avoid paying child support or alimony, Richard paid the full amount up front.
Grandpa, Grandma,
Stephen, it's so good to see you.
Stephen beamed as Richard playfully ruffled his hair. Even after the divorce, Stephen and I still visited Daniel's parents' house regularly. My marriage had been utterly miserable because of Daniel, but I didn't want to forget the kindness Richard and Sandra had shown me. Sandra, how have you been feeling? I'm sorry I can't visit as often as I used to. Since the divorce, it had become harder to visit every day, and that was something that weighed on my mind.
Thank you, Mia. I'm doing very well. We've hired another caregiver, so everything's running smoothly.
Sandra gave me a gentle smile. Seeing her expression gave me a small sense of relief. Richard, who had been frowning at his phone, called out to me.
Mia, could you help me? How do I block calls from this number? I'd ask someone younger, but I figured you'd know.
You can block it from here. Is it a spam call?
Thanks, no, it's Daniel.
Upon asking further, I learned that Daniel had been leaving desperate messages on Richard's voicemail, pleading for help as he struggled with loan repayments, night shifts, and failed job applications.
Well, at least I won't have to deal with those voicemails anymore. Thanks for your help.
That sounds tough, Richard. When I said that, Richard spoke with a serious expression.
It's nothing compared to the stress and pain Daniel caused you, Mia. I'm truly sorry for everything.
Sandra's eyes grew moist as she nodded in agreement. Please don't. That was an issue between Daniel and me. I'm the one who should apologize for dragging you into it. After a brief silence, the three of us exchanged smiles, and a warm atmosphere filled the room.
See you next time, Stephen.
okay. Bye, Grandpa.
After finishing our meal together, Richard walked us to the door. On the way home, Stephen and I strolled hand in hand through the sunset. Stephen was in high spirits, his steps light and happy. Our destination wasn't the house we used to live in as a family of 3, but a newly built apartment. I chose the new apartment because I wanted a place with better security measures as a precaution against Daniel. And the old house was too large for just the 2 of us. Stephen seemed to love our new home. Since the divorce, his smile had become more frequent, and he was thriving. As for me, though my days were a whirlwind of work and parenting, I finally felt like I had found true happiness.